Okay, we got it set now. They got the 0.08 millimeters here unchecked and 0.18 millimeters here. Now how you do that is you need a 10 millimeter wrench on there. You just want to loosen that, and then you got a little screw up here. You can just turn that by hand. You don't really need you can put a flathead in it, but you don't really need a flathead. But you want to get your feeler gauge in there and just take some back and forth. You got to get it in there, snug down on top of it, and then when you tighten this up, that can move and become a little bit tighter. So maybe pinch down on it on like the 0.2 millimeters, and then when you sock that down, the 0.2, take the feeler gauge out, then sock it down. Then you shouldn't be able to get the 0.2 back in, and see if you can get the 0.18 in. So that's how I got that one. So the 1.8 is real tight. This one's tight too on the 0.08. So you want to do that same thing. So it takes some patience. You got to go back and forth, but you want to get those down as tight as you can. I really can't get in there with a torque wrench. My torque wrench is too big to get in there to torque those down. So I'm gonna have to move this out of the way when I put that on. But now those valves are adjusted to the right height, and I just wanted to check the, you want to check the top of the surface, make sure you don't have any silicone from the previous gasket on there. If you do, just use your fingernails to get rid of that, and just, you just kind of want to wipe the surface, make sure everything seems good, make sure everything's clean, there's nothing on there. Okay, now I want to get ready to put this back together. So I got my new gasket, and I got that installed on there, and I just had some oil on my fingers and just rub it around the gasket and get it in there, and actually seats in there pretty good. So we're now going to take that, put the cover back on, and line this up so this fits right in that slot right here, and just place this back on top. And once we get that in there and everything looks seated good, we'll put our bolts back in. I did get replacements for these too, so I'm going to go ahead and change those. I mean, these look like in absolutely fine condition. I don't see anything wrong with them. I mean, I could definitely just reuse these. I might go ahead and do that. I might reuse these because these look absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong on them. Oh, this one's a little chewed up. I don't know if you can see it there, but that one's a little chewed up. So I might go ahead and just go ahead and just replace those. And we got all new gaskets. I also have a replacement O-ring for this too. This O-ring looks like it's in, great shape. I don't see anything wrong with it. So I might use that, or I might just replace the gasket and say, the hell with it, just use a new O-ring. I'm gonna go ahead and get this cover back on first and replace those. We'll put those in place, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, I got the old gaskets put away, and I put the new ones on. I put my new O-ring on this. It was in a great shape, and I'm keeping them just in case I'll have a backup. They weren't really that bad. And if you're wondering about these, how they go on, I don't know if you can see that, but you want that steel part facing up to where the head of the bolt is. Now these bolts, I found them to be on the service manual. The service manual isn't the best, but I found them, from what I can tell, it's about 8 pounds, about 7 to 8 foot-pounds of torque for these on the top. That sounds about right to me, because these are very easy to take off. They weren't tight at all, and especially these right here. These, I couldn't find any torque setting on that, but these are like, just barely get them tight. That's what I've seen on there. You really don't need to sock those down. So just a very minimal, as soon as you get it seated, just maybe a quarter turn, just to get some tension on there. But you really don't want to over tighten these right here. That's holding the side plate on. So I'm going to go ahead and put these back on, torque these down. I didn't find any torque setting on that, but this wasn't very difficult to take off too. So I would just go by feel and, like I said, get it seated, maybe a quarter turn, just enough to get it, like they say, good and tight. And but you really don't want to over tighten this thing. And you don't want to over tighten this, and you definitely don't want to tighten these. And we should be good. So let me get those bolts back in, and we'll start putting this together. All right, we got the cover back on, we got all the bolts in, but we only have those finger tight right now. So I'm gonna go back in the order in which I started. So I'm gonna tighten this one first, then the spark plug, then this bracket right here, and then finally the heads on the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and sock those down. I believe these are at 7 foot-pounds. These are just very minimal. This I couldn't find. I believe these are 7 to 8 pounds, so they don't need to be very tight. If I find anything different after making this video, I'll put that in the comments. So let me tighten these up and we can get back to putting this together. Okay, all the bolts back in, torque down. Next thing to do is to put this wiring mess back together. So I got something over here holding this up, so we gotta clamp this back in place. These clips are still in place, and just put our, so I only got 2 things really tied up over here, and I got these tied up for the gas tank. So let's get this wiring in place. I'll give you a shot of that put together. Here we get all our bolts back on for the wiring. So we had to put this on right here. Make sure that was on. We got our 2 breather hoses. This is for the throttle side. We get that. We got our ground attached right there. Now see these rubber pieces? There's one on either side. That's what we're putting the tank on. You take a look at the tank. Inside there, you'll see that's where those 2 rest on. So that's how that latches on in the front. And then we just push that forward, put it down, and put our bolts on. So I'm gonna get the tank on there, put the breather hoses on, get it set down, and then we got our 2 connections right here. So almost there. Okay, getting the tank back on. First thing you want to do is line up those rubber bushings in the front like I showed you. Just get it in there, but you know, have it way up enough so you can get in, get those breather tubes in. You want to hook up your electrical connector that was in there, and make sure it kind of hooks on underneath. There's a little place that it hooks in, and then finally your fuel line right here. Make sure you get a click on each one of those. You get a click coming in for the electrical, a click coming in for that one. We got our bolt lined up. So what you do is tighten that back up. I will get the foot-pounds on that. I think I have it. Then we're going to put our seat on. Tank is on, tank is all set. So remember that's an 8mm on that side, 10mm on that side. Get it as tight as you can. I couldn't find a torque specification on that. If I find any of these, I will add them to the comments as far as what bolt needs what torque. So we need to put a seat back on. That's the 12mm that's going to go through here, both sides. So we get our seat. We just kind of hook that in, set it through, put our bolts through, torque it down. Don't gotta go super crazy tight on that, but just gotta get good and tight on that one. And then we'll have to put our gas back in, start it up, make sure everything works. Well, you can see we got it back together. Started right up, everything seems good. We got any leaks on the fuel, any leaks on the oil. Alright, so that's how it's done. That's the first 300 service, and I definitely think it's worth doing yourself if you can do it, because like I found those adjustments are way off. The position that they were in, they just were not right. So it's definitely worth doing and worth checking. It actually sounds a little smoother. Got a little backfire there.